I mean, 2 years ago, Jeter, who was, well, not really producing at all top of the order, he had no problem sticking in there a leadoff throughout his farewell. Yet A-Rod, all of a sudden, he can't hit, so I'm not going to play him. How about that inconsistency with the manager for a second?
Well, I mean, as bad as Derek was compared to the rest of his career, Chris, he did hit 260 that year, and Girardi did bring up the point. He didn't have anybody else to put there that was hitting better. They've got these options at DH, and again, I don't think there's a warm and fuzzy side to this. I think we'd all like it to be, but I don't think the Yankees felt they owed A-Rod anything except for the $27 million, and Joe is really obsessed about trying to make the playoffs, and at this point, when all of this was going down, they were 3.5, 4 games out. Right now, they're 4.5 games out of the second wild card, so they are not putting on a farewell tour. Again, the only thing I didn't understand is him saying on Sunday that he's going to play him every single day, and then when he didn't, that really raised eyebrows. If he hadn't said that on Sunday, Chris, I don't think anybody would have really had a problem with it.
Yeah, I wasn't putting Babe Ruth up there as a DH. McCann has done nothing, let's be honest. Hit 230. I mean, it wouldn't have killed him to play him there as a DH on that first game. I was surprised. I mean, have a sense of the history of it, have some fun with it.
Well, here's the deal, though. Here's the deal, though, Chris. Everybody sees the romantic aspect, his last game on Friday. But they released him. They don't think he can play anymore. But here's the stuff that never makes sense to me, Chris. If you don't think he can play and you never play him, then why in the 2 games that you played him, you've added him clean up in the third?
Exactly. I mean, that's the point. It was inconsistencies all over the place. If you can't play, Joe, you're just putting him out there as a ceremonial thing. By the ninth, give him a pinch hit on Friday against Tampa, if that's the case. The wild card playoff spot's that important. Hey, there were inconsistencies where the Yankees handled this all last week. That's my basic issue with the whole A-Rod scenario.
I have to buy that with you. There was inconsistencies. It was very complicated. I think it was something that was negotiated by Hal Steinbrenner, which pretty much said that he had to play him on Friday, but nothing was said about Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday in Boston. So, in fairness to Joe, he's put in an awkward situation, and he has to pretty much follow the orders of management, at least on the Friday aspect of it. But he got himself into trouble by saying what he said on Sunday, by saying he was going to play him every single day.
All right, now listen, the newspapers and the media, they don't like A-Rod. So if you didn't watch the festivities on Friday or follow it and bought your New York Daily News or your New York Post or any of the tabloid papers in New York or looked at our blogs and anything else, A-Rod got destroyed. Adios, a good riddance. I mean, they couldn't wait to get him out of there. But if you look at it from a fan standpoint, the place was sold out. The fans stood up many a time. The Yankee bench was into it. I mean, it seemed like from the standpoint of and you've been part of this forever with the Yankees, it seemed like they were all there to give him a nice send-off. What's your take on that complex aspect with A-Rod, with the media and the fan base at Yankee Stadium on Friday night?
Well, one thing I disagree with you about, the media loves him. I mean, he's the dream guy to cover. I think the guys that write the headlines really went over the top. God hates A-Rod, all that stuff. But on Friday, the place was jammed. It was jammed way more than it was on Saturday and Sunday. You can get a ticket for Friday, and I think for the most part, the fans have forgiven it. And it's almost like San Francisco with Barry Bonds. He's our guy. Even if he did something wrong, he's our guy. And Mark McGwire in St. Louis, he's our guy. And I think that over the last 2 years, A-Rod has patched things up enough that the fans actually do like him. And I thought he got a great send-off. And it was perfect, though. And I know why the headline writers did what they did. With everything that's gone on and the cloud that hangs over his head, for there to be a thunderclap when his name was mentioned, I mean, you can't write that in Hollywood.
I couldn't agree with you more. All right, how about now with the Marlins? Because that's the team that obviously everybody's going to point to. A-Rod, quote-unquote, has not used the word retire in any of his proclamations here in the last 6 days. If somebody from the Marlins, the owner, the GM, Michael Hill, whoever, if they called up his agent or himself, I'm sure they already have had some communication, said, A-Rod, we'd like to bring you down here to see if we can play and get you in the lineup a little bit. Do you think A-Rod will bite on that, or do you think A-Rod actually right now wants to be retired? What's your take on that?
Well, I always thought he would come back and play. I think that the 4 home runs away from 700 gnawed him. But he did tell somebody that I know that he was done. But here's the thing. The Marlins are the perfect situation for him, except for the fact he really can't play a position. He showed that he couldn't play first base, and he'd have to play first base. They probably moved Prado into the outfield. So it can be done, and it's 10 minutes from his house. But here's the complicated part, and everything with A-Rod is complicated, Chris. He really does value, moving forward, the connection to the Yankees. So if he does play for the Marlins, there is nothing set in stone. that tells you that that connection and that advisor role still exists. He'd have to clear that with Hal Steinbrenner, and I don't know what the thing would be moving forward, whether or not Steinbrenner would give his blessing and say, okay, when you're done, come back. And I think that is ultra valuable for A-Rod and his brand moving forward, is to be connected to the Yankees.
We'll hear from you a little later on curtain calls of Mr. Judge. Good job, Mike. Thanks very much. I appreciate it here today.
You got it. Thank you, Chris.